Hey, hey!
Hello, here we are live
Here we
again,
are. Live again. Live from Saturday Night Live? No, we can't do
right?
that.
And look at you, you're in a studio, right? You look like the real deal.
Right? Absolutely, I did. I had to be down here. I was hoping you were going to be right here beside me,
I
live
know,
in like real person. Then we could have one box instead of two.
right? It's future us.
Yes, yes. I love it. It's so funny how like you think getting a studio in a space would bring you all together, but like we're passing ships in the wind.
Yeah, totally. Not enough time in the
Good.
day, right?
Not enough time today, which brings us to a really
Commu-
relevant topic today, communication,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Right?
That's effective communication at that, which is
Right? What do they
not
say?
easy.
The biggest myth of communication is the fact that it has occurred, right?
I love that. I love that saying. Well, and a stat, I think it was Gallup, said on average, companies lose $15,000 per employee due to poor communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's expensive.
So I got a story about that.
Oh, hit me.
We once had a document numbering issue on a project, some stupid little thing, right?
Yep.
And the amount of emails that flew back and forth, I think after about 3 weeks, I stopped and I counted them, and it was over 200. And I sent a note to the team and I was like, gentlemen, and like, ladies and gentlemen, we have sent 224 emails on this topic in the last 3 weeks. I have booked a training. Please attend. Like seriously, if someone said, "Hey, can you please write 224 emails?" I'd be like, "That's going to take me all day." Yeah, it is.
240 emails. That's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a lot of people's time.
Mm-hmm. Right. And like, yeah. So.
Oh, there's so many things. We could unpack this for hours, and we don't have that much time. We definitely have three major points we want to touch on. And I think the first one you said, Adam, was authenticity, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. I
Right?
think. I mean, communication means so many things, right? Communication is within your own business. It's outside the community around you, and I think the corporate world just likes to get very corporate-y, right? Especially the bigger you get, the lawyers get involved. It's like, nope, don't say that, don't say this, don't say that.
Yep.
And then you also don't want to look like share any vulnerability or feelings that you actually might be having, especially if it's external. Or if you're a leader, you're scared to say like, "Hey guys, I'm worried about this." You feel like you have to show this invincibility.
Right?
Don't like, here's what's going like, and it's not authentic. It's not real, and people will
People can
treat it,
tell.
yeah, like that if it is right. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
Um, And I think we underestimate people's ability to hear bad news and react in an optimistic, positive way.
I would agree to that. I would agree to that. And I love that authentic piece to it because it's being authentic and being genuine in your communication, whether it's an email, whether it's, you know, a conversation you're having, whether it's a live video cast, right? Is that's how people connect, right? That's how people start to build layers of trust is because what you see here is what you're going to get, when you walk into the studio, when, you email me, I'm going to use way too much exclamation marks and you're going to have to deal with it. But like that's authentically who I am. Like I'm always a very positive, upbeat person. And so the way I email is the way I talk and is the way I, show up in the day. So I think there's power in that continuity because it does build layers of trust.
Mhm. You know, I think a good story is, our own story, right? People often look to us and be like, "Oh man, you guys are everywhere. I love your content," like all that kind of stuff. Like, how'd you get into it? How's it working? I've tried this and I've tried that and it hasn't worked, blah, blah, blah. And if I go back to 2020, when, boom, right? Lost everything. Basically, you and I looking at each other like, what the hell are we going to do?
We can't feed our families in 3 months. We're gonna be
Right?
screwed. Yeah.
Well, LinkedIn, let's go. Making videos, recording stuff. No idea.
Communicating.
But we were communicating. We were just like, all right, how are you feeling right now? And it was terrifying. I'll admit, every time we threw something out, I was terrified. Like, it was just
my God. Right?
very scary to be like that vulnerable, to be like, I'm terrified. I don't know what we're going to do. We have no clients, no hope.
And then to post that.
Yeah.
Like for everybody to see. Like oh my gosh, yeah, that took a lot of courage for sure.
Mm-hmm. But what happened? We started networking on there, meet people, and then I go meet people, or you go meet people, and they'd be like, "Oh wow, I watched your video. Yeah, Caitlin seems really cool." I'm like, "Oh, you know Caitlin? No,
no, I just seen her in a video.
But I thought I should meet you guys, right?" And that's it.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
And that's exactly what happened, and it meant a lot because we were genuine. We genuinely wanted to help people, right? And this was it too. It wasn't just our message. Remember, we were like, you know what? Let's interview other consultants who do what we do, other contractors, and lift them up too, because we're all going through this. And so we actually had the End to Ask series was started that way, right? We interviewed contractors who we know were struggling as well, and we were going through this hard time because all of our contracts got paused, put on hold. So we highlighted other people and genuinely just wanted to lift people up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, people can see your intent through your communications. They can feel that. And I think that's part of being authentic too.
Right? You just sort of put it out there for the sake of giving and helping others, right? And I think...
Yeah. Oh, you went on mute, Adam. I don't even know how you did that.
Like a magic mute.
There's a mute symbol.
Speaking of communication, that's enough communicating.
That's enough communication.
Right?
Yeah.
But internally, the same principles can apply, right? Especially if you have multiple locations or a big group or whatever.
Yeah.
How many times have we heard the complaint like, "You guys sit across the hall from each other. Why are you emailing?"
Oh my God, right? Yes, absolutely. This happens all the time. In fact, we have one client who they solved this problem. They tried to with scooters.
Yeah, exactly. Accountants were on this side of the, the square building setup, and they were not communicating very well with the engineers. So what did they do? They brought scooters into the office. Drive the damn scooter around.
It made it fun, but it facilitated the connection, the communication, right? Mm-hmm. It was awesome. And I think that that brings us probably to our next point on communication is there's so many ways. There's so many ways to communicate. I think go ahead.
Too many ways you check a box. Oh, yeah. Corporate email goes out.
The memo. Didn't you read the memo?
Yeah. Whatever. It's our quarterly corporate communication, blah, 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 blah. Yes. There's nothing in there authentic. There's a bunch of jargon about our business is doing great. We are amazing, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing real, right?
Yep.
There's no message from the founder. Hey, guys, how's it going? Like, really want to connect with you. Nothing.
Oh, this is my favorite story. You ready for this? I heard this one the other day. I was talking to an engineer, and his company would send out these email newsletters, and a section of the newsletter was like, see us in the news, like on social. So they scraped content from like the news, from CTV, from newspaper postings, all that stuff, and they would put the links into this monthly, quarterly newsletter or whatever, right? But no one reviewed that from the communications team. They would just scrape it, pull it, plug it in. And a lot of the newsletters were like bashing oil and gas, which is like their industry. And it's like, no, that wasn't the message that should have gone out. And they're like, oh yeah, we should probably really read those before we put them in. Like, your own communications team isn't reading the communication.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. And I think sometimes that's a great symptom of it's like an afterthought, right? Oh yeah, we should have a newsletter. Someone do the newsletter, right?
It's a box to check. Newsletter, check. We're communicating, right?
And I think
social media, check, but nothing real.
Yeah, and I think be authentic, but then there's also you have to do it so many different ways and so many different venues. Some people will watch a video. Others will read a newsletter. Others, you have to put a poster up in the kitchen that points to something, right?
Other people love podcasts. They'll listen to it on their way home or whatever, right?
Yeah. Other people, you have to physically go around and tap on the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
And I think your job as a influential person in an organization or leader or business owner or whoever, you've just got to commit to that, cascading messages, and then not just once, like 100 times, right?
Yeah, and all over the place, because everybody's different on how they receive information. Like for me, I love audio, I love video, but if your email's longer than like a 30-second read, I'm out.
Right. Yeah.
I'm way too distracted for that, right? In the time, especially when you're at work, all the notifications are popping up constantly. But this, our buddy Ben Baker. So if you guys aren't connected to Ben Baker, get connected to Ben Baker. He's awesome, but he specializes in internal podcasts. So creating those internal communications and a channel where people can stay up to date in their corporations. And that's a really cool initiative, a cool way to offer that extra layer of communication.
Well, and I think, podcasts are such a fun way, right? You think it's just conversations, but I think about it internally in a podcast. If you're trying to, let's say you're a big company and you want to implement a new software, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be against it. People are going to be frustrated. It's pushing uphill. Podcast, you just grab influential people and you interview them about the podcast, ask their opinion on the change, blah, 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 and then afterwards you ask them to be a champion and to help you out. That's it. You're grabbing the early adopters and sharing their story to engage the masses. It's not just random conversation, right? It's actually
it's not random, but it's still conversation, which is good, right? Like you still you might have a theme, you might have a topic, you might be going specifically about a change that's happening, we're updating this process or whatever, but it's a conversation between two people that you might never have been part of their conversation and you got invited in, right? Like essentially you get to listen in. And what happens here, if we like reverse engineer the psychology of it, right? What happens here is I get to see Adam interacting authentically in a conversation. Right? I get to hear his opinions. I get to see how he processes things. And when I go up to Adam now, and maybe I've never talked to him before in this corporation, I was like, that's my intro. I listened to your podcast. I really loved what you said about this. I just opened up a conversation with somebody that I would have walked by, right? So it's creating connection, it's creating communication, and it's creating conversation. I love that two-way communication, because that's the other thing we really wanted to talk about is it's not one way.
Yeah, it has to be two-way, right? Everyone has that colleague, friend, cousin, whatever, that you just sit down and you're like, they're talking at me, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's like the Barbie movie, right? The Ken's playing the guitar at the Barbies. Anyway, you're like, if I wasn't here, they wouldn't notice. If I just replaced myself with a cutout.
Right? 100%, and that's you replace that. Can we get a cutout of you? Side note.
Be amazing.
Well, and this is the part that's really hard, and I think we all struggle with this. I definitely struggle with the active listening part of communication, right? My brain goes, my ADHD, I go 1,000 miles an hour, right? And so to really listen in and focus on somebody's conversation, sometimes I'll just be like, 1 second, I just got to write a note down because you made me think of something that I want to talk to you about later, but I want this story to continue, right? In order for me to like give them, but they have to, give me permission to be a little squirrely sometimes, and it's hard because the active listening part of communication, it isn't easy. We're always trying to think of what we're going to say next.
Well, and I think the reason why communication is a pillar of an engaged culture, right? The reason why we added this in is because too often it's forgotten, right? We have people who are very good at management of change, that type of stuff when you're trying to implement something, but it's all, they're like, okay, we'll write the process, we'll create a document, we'll do a training. That's it, right? That's kind of like how we're going to go about trying to push it. But what the party missed was let's kick this off. Let's bring everyone together. Let's get really connected. Let's make sure that our human connection is really good. Let's explain the why. Let's explain our thought process. Let's invite it for questions. Let's open the door for feedback through the whole thing. Like, this is the part that we skip over, and it's arguably the most important part, I think.
Yes. Now I'm going to do that squirrel thing. I definitely want to talk about feedback for a second because that's huge communication. But one of the things, just to round off what you're talking about, is it does impact culture. So I want to caveat this. You can have a command control type business where it's just the leader says jump and you jump, right? And that communication's one way. It's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about your command control type company. We're talking about an engaged culture company. That's where this kind of two-way effective communication is beneficial, right? And what it does is unlock innovation, ideas, prevents issues from happening because they can have a conversation, work through some of these problems instead of just jumping and realizing that they jumped in a hole, right? Like, this is why we say it's a pillar and there's ROI on it.
Well, and I think it's also why it's often the last one that we bring up, right? Because you need the psychological safety for open communication to exist.
Yeah.
You need accountability for people to understand who's doing what and what's expected of them. And you need to be constantly improving in order to drive this, turn this energy into something productive and get ROI out of it. So until you have all those three, the communication, it won't exist in the way that you want it.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to feedback, because one of the things that when we send out a communication, even if we're leaders sending out a communication, getting feedback on how that landed. Hey, Adam, did you see that email? What did you think? Did you see that notice? Did you go look at the poster? What do you think of that? And if you have questions, as the recipient of the communication, if you have questions, probably everybody else does, right? Like, so how good are you communicating? Are you doing your own feedback loop in your communication?
I love that, right? And I think being a little creative, right? Like, sometimes with this stuff, you can plan it out all you want. You can write communication plans and all this kind of stuff, but like, at the end of the day, you throw it out to the world, internally, externally, and you kind of see what happens. And exactly like that. Ask around. Did that land? Oh, I didn't even see it. What was it? Oh, okay. Email is not the right one. I need to send it out a different way, right? Yeah. Let's try the poster, right? You see the poster? Yeah, I was wondering what that was, but it was confusing. I didn't quite understand. Okay, the message in the poster was confusing. Okay, what else can I do? Right? Maybe I'm going to make a video and try and explain it and send it out. Did you watch the video? Yeah, actually, the video was pretty cool. I made sense, whatever. Okay, video is what people are responding to, right? But then the guy over there is like, oh, I just read the email the first time and it was fine. I got it. Okay, so that guy's going to read whatever I put out there. He's going to read every word. Perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
Good. Yeah, that's how he intakes information, and it's fine. But getting the feedback loop on your communication, and that means too, like, even when you have a conversation, because this has happened a couple times, and it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I think that I'm communicating clearly, and then I'll come back and be like, that's not what I was trying to say, right? And I'm like, I thought I said this. Did I not say this? Did I not say this is exactly how we're going to run this? Like, I specifically said it, I wrote it, but it's me. I'm clearly, and I'm not doing my active feedback loop then, like a day later being like, hey, I just wanted to check in that landed, that you understand what we're doing. You want to repeat back to me so I make sure we're on the same page, or that I've done my job in communicating. But I mean, that takes, I guess, time, one, which is a lot, but it just takes that forethought to be like, okay, I need to check back in on this major communication, right? And it's caused us extra rework when we haven't done that little sanity check-in on major communications.
Right. Well, and I think, what you're talking about is slowly getting in sync with someone, so you're speaking the same language, right? And
totally.
Big part of that, there's all those personality tests and things out there that talk. There's the colors one that's really popular, but it talks about how you need to be communicated with. So that's why they're sometimes valuable to be like, oh, you're a blue, or you're a yellow, or you're a this, that, or the other thing, and be like, oh, this person needs details. I cannot walk in here without all the details,
Yeah.
right? Whereas that person hates details. They want to know here to
High
here.
level.
Just tell me, got it, okay, cool. Then what do I need to know, right?
Yeah, that's so true. Those things are super valuable for that. The Strengths Finder, the DISC profile, the Myers-Briggs. You got to use them though. Like so many companies get them, take them, and they don't do the next steps with them and use them. But it is true. Like I very much want to get to the point. Like you'll lose me if there's too much detail, or for me, I am so focused on what's happening next in my brain. I sometimes will forget to say to somebody like, "How are you today?" Right? Like I actively have to practice that. Like it's not my natural state, right? My natural states, we talk about this, is like super strategic, super performance based. So it's like I walk in and I'm like, blah, 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 do this, right? And it's like, whoa, for some people, right? For those feely people, it can't be. So now I write every email twice. I write it in my natural state, which is like, hey, I need this, blah, 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 by this time, blah, 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 blah. And then I go back up and I go to the top. How are you? Hey, how is your family? Did your kids do good in their soccer game on the weekend? And I add this stuff in. It's not my natural state, but it's a practice.
I once worked with a guy. He ran all the equipment for the organization. So if you needed any sort of tech in any part of the building, he was responsible for just moving around and all that inventory of great stuff.
Yeah.
And the leadership, project manager, whatever, were frustrated because they would send him emails. I need this to there. I need this to there, whatever. And they get frustrated because sometimes they get done some not like they were just very frustrated. And I soon quickly realized this guy just loved to chat. So I would schedule like an hour. If I had one question for this person that should take like 3 minutes, I'd be like, I'm going to be there for an hour because I know that we're going to sit down and he's just going to talk about this and that. We're going to talk about everything, blah, blah, blah. But then somewhere in there, I'd slip in like, oh, by the way, can you bring like 2 of those boxes over to there? I need them like today. Oh, yeah, no problem. That's it. I built a relationship with a guy and I knew it would be an hour and a little bit of me just drove me crazy, but still. And guess what? People started to come to me to get their inventory handled because whatever I asked, it was done in 5 seconds. Because I built a relationship with him because I recognized that that's what he needed. He needed someone to just sit with him to talk back and forth for that hour or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fine, if that's what I have to do, if that saves all this frustration and time, then it's worth the time.
Everybody send me their list.
Yeah, honestly, that's exactly what happened. People were like, you seem to be able to get him to do anything you want. Like, can you get him to do like, yes, I can.
Because I cared.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard.
And it's not like I'm sitting there like inauthentically. I'm like generally enjoying the conversation. He's a great guy. He's got stories and we're just talking. I'm putting aside the schedule-driven driver for a second and just going to go hang out, right?
And you know what? We talked about this too. We were doing a team building the other day, and this is one of the main points, is that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stop the crazy whirlwind that's happening and just go connect with somebody for 5 minutes. Right? Sometimes that is the highest priority, and it's amazing the energy that comes out of it, the innovation that comes out of it, like so much, just having that little communication connection time, go grab a coffee and get out of your zone and then come back and feel fully refreshed, right? Like it's a huge difference.
Well, and I think to that point, when you are communicating authentically and you are making the effort to make a video and do a poster and do an email and ask in person and then do it 20 times and all that kind of stuff, what you're saying to people is this is important and I care enough about you to do it in a way that will land for you.
Yeah.
And they'll recognize that. They'll be like, this person's really trying, right?
Yeah.
It's like seeing somebody, I don't know, pop up on your social feed 20 times with like blah, 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 and then you ignore them. But like the 21st time, you're like, okay, this guy's really putting in effort. I will watch this. right? He's
Yeah,
earned
absolutely.
my respect here. I will check this out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You back when you were talking about long conversations, it reminded me of our friend Bruno.
Mm,
Bruno Lindia, our good friend Bruno, our mentor, our oh man, that guy's amazing. But he does the Exactary exercise, right? And you'll have to ask Bruno about it. There's a whole long, adorable story that goes with it. But that exercise is so key to be able to get on the exact same page. Like what you're saying is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what you're saying. We
mhm.
get it. It's not a little bit different here. It's not a little bit different here. It's exactly right. That kind of clarity so that you and I share a vision together is so powerful.
And that works whatever you're doing. Like it could be a presentation, could be a sales call. It's just like really Zachary is like you say your definition or what you want to do or whatever, and then I just say it back to you, and I just say, "Is that exactly?"
Exactly.
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 And you say, "No, not quite." Blah 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 blah, and then I do it again until we're like, "Yes, exactly."
That's
Right?
it. We understand it to its full extent. Yes.
Mhm.
And
You're
it's super powerful.
basically saying, "I hear you. I see you and I hear you." This is not about agreeing about adding more information or whatever. It is just simply, I got it exactly like you said, right?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's we've got 2 minutes to wrap it up. So we've talked about all 4 pillars so far. If you guys haven't seen the other ones, go back and check them out. Psychological safety, clear accountabilities, strategic improvement, and effective communication. Um, there's a ton of other things that we want to talk about, things like recognition, things like uh, what is typically called performance reviews or succession planning, and we have
Mhm.
different opinions on that. So we're looking forward to that one. But I actually had a question come in on my DMs about specifically this push of going back to office because we need to work on the culture.
Ooh,
So I would love to talk about that next week because this is a specific ask in our DMs on this specific topic,
okay.
and it's happening. It's real. Like people are feeling frustrated. There's like potential of people like leaving. What's going to happen? Because everybody got into this hybrid mode or even remote mode, and now there's this push to go back to office. So let's talk about that next time.
Ooh, I love that. That's a
Yeah,
juicy one.
it's
Yeah,
juicy. Yeah, maybe we can invite a guest on and talk about it.
that would be good. All right. Very cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. And don't forget to check in every Thursday morning, or if you don't have time Thursday mornings, go on to Enta's YouTube channel, subscribe, follow, like, and you'll get all these lives, little tips, funny stories. And we appreciate you watching and tuning in.